Welcome back, PetaPixel viewers. It is Chris Niccolls here, and I'm joined by our good friend, Mike Drew, and we're here to play with, now, a full production Canon R5 Mark II. Now, for our little road trip today, Jordan is undoubtedly going to choose some music from Audiio, our favorite source for rights-free music. And we've got a great offer right now. If you use the discount code PetaPixel, you can get $300 off a lifetime subscription to Audiio. And it's worth it because there's some really powerful AI tools that I want to talk about. So Audiio is all about making it as easy as possible for you guys to find the music that you want for your work. So beyond their powerful search engine, they also have AI playlists. This is really cool. Based on your favorite music tracks, Audiio can then build an AI-generated playlist that should include songs that are really going to make sense for the kind of work that you want to do. Audiio also has AI suggestions, and this is really cool. Based on the songs that you like to listen to, it'll analyze things like the tempo, the genre, the general mood, and then pick songs for you that are very similar. So if you're looking for alternatives, this makes it super easy. And if you want the quickest possible suggestions, just use the Audio's aptly named Bolt feature, little lightning bolt icon right next to the song that you happen to be listening to. It will then make other suggestions that are similar to that song. So Audiio is really trying to make it as easy as possible for your workflow. And remember, you're getting $300 off a lifetime subscription right now. That is a huge offer. So again, click the link in the description below, make sure you use that PetaPixel discount and get your $300 off today. And we're back. And Mike, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, it's my pleasure. It's so good to see you guys again.
I know. So to give context, we've had Mike Drew here on the show quite a few times, both Camera Store days, DP Review days, now here at PetaPixel. And Mike, you have an illustrious career. You have been doing your on-the-road article for how many years?
Since 1991.
Wow. Of course, Mike's also been a news journalist for a long time here in Calgary, and you've been a Canon shooter. What was your first camera?
Canon AE1 was my first camera, and I'm still hanging in with Canon.
You are like mafia loyal to this brand, I swear. And so this is why it's such a great time to have you here, because you haven't seen the R5 Mark II yet.
No,
right?
I haven't. No.
And, we're here in beautiful Alberta. You know the back roads better than anybody else on this planet. So I think this is a great travel cam to just kind of go for a road trip, hopefully see some wildlife, maybe get some nice landscapes. I mean, that's what's great about this platform.
Yep, absolutely.
That's the R5?
Yeah.
That's not an old camera, Mike.
No, it's a loved camera.
Wow. You use these cameras all the time, but you haven't used this yet, so I'm going to let you play with this. Hopefully it comes back to us not looking like that.
They're not museum pieces, Chris.
No, absolutely.
They're tools. So we're headed down to the Ann and Sandy Cross Nature Conservancy area down here at the bottom of this hill. And then we're going to look at the beaver ponds that are down here. We should be able to find something.
So Mike, we took the FJ Cruiser last time we went out with you. You still have it. What are you up to now for kilometers?
Let's have a look here. 830,423.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah. I got to get it broken in. I'm expecting the gas mileage to get way better as soon as that motor really finds its own pace.
Now, just a quick side note, if you're wondering why we're not talking about the 5.76 million EVF, or the fact that the mechanical shutter goes up to 12 frames per second maximum, or 30 frames per second electronic shutter mode, or the pre-burst shooting, or the fact that we got a new battery in this camera, it's because we covered a lot of that in our first video, our first impressions video. Definitely check that out. We get a lot more information there. Here we really want to focus on the things that we weren't able to test the first time. Okay, so as usual, let's start things off with handling, because we've had a fair amount of time now on the R5 II. And you know what, I gotta say, I really enjoyed the original R5's handling. I thought it was great. I think it's a perfect mix of weight, size, grip size. I mean, I really enjoyed it ergonomically, but I actually like the R5 II better. I don't mind the power switch being over here on the right. In fact, I prefer having an on-off switch right next to where my shutter is. Everything else feels great. The new improved grip is a little bit larger. I don't mind that here. It still fits my hand really well. I do also like that now on the left side, we're back to the photo video selector switch over here. I'm not going to accidentally hit it because it's far away from everything. And at a glance, I can see if I'm in photo mode or video mode. So overall ergonomics are fantastic here. Now in terms of the menus, again, it's very familiar experience if you've used a Canon camera before, and I do like the way it's laid out. I love how Canon does color coordinate their different menus. It all makes sense, but I also appreciate big changes they've done to things, for example, like the autofocus menu, where they've simplified it. They've gotten rid of all the case studies. It's far simpler on the R5 Mark II, and I actually think that it works really well. It's easy to adjust, not as confusing as it was before. Now, as for the quick menu, I mean, this is very familiar to existing Canon users. First off, you can use touchscreen to do it. You can use your autofocus joystick. Canon menus and controls are always nice because you can intuitively change things however you prefer. So, of course, one of the new features on here is that we now have eye control, where it's going to actually follow your eye. I want you to give it a try, see how that works, okay?
What does it mean when it says eye control not detected? Keep your eyes close to the viewfinder so that you can see the entire screen.
It's telling you that it doesn't like you, so just try. I mean, your eyes mashed in there pretty good. Just it might take a few tries. Just try it again.
Calibration failed. Try again.
Okay, well, okay, try it again.
You know, the best part is hanging on to this camera with the 100 to 300.
Yeah, I could have given you a lighter lens.
Oh, that was great.
What? Did it work?
No.
Okay. Okay, so you got to use like your third eye, Mike. You gotta believe.
I'm going to use my third leg and just piss on this whole process.
Okay, so clearly it failed. And this is funny that we're seeing this. I mean, even on the press event, it was kind of a mixed bag of who it worked for or not. Jordan can't make it work. That's a relief. Yeah, it's not just you. Jordan can't make it work. His wife Evelyn's tried it, can't make it work.
Chris, can I just say that if I had eye control, I doubt I'd ever use it anyway.
Okay, fair enough.
So,
I mean, I do use it, and I actually do find it quite effective. But yeah, it's no good if you can't even get it to calibrate.
Yeah.
Okay, so, you know, Canon always like to keep things weather sealed. The R5 Mark II is very well weather sealed, but they always worry about the hot shoe. So I got this new hot shoe cover. I didn't want to comment on it in the pre-pro video because it was pre-pro, but now this is production. This is a disaster. Try getting that off. Look,
okay.
Let's just see if logic makes sense.
Press the button.
Yeah. And then what? Slide it off. Press it like you mean it. Right?
Here, hang on.
Yeah. What? No. Just the tire. Okay, so let's talk about image quality next, all right? So we're getting 45 megapixels on the R5 II. That's the same as the original R5, and I can also confirm that Canon is still baking in noise reduction even into the RAWs. They love to do that, so you're gonna lose a little bit of detail there. And so I'd say overall resolution and detail is very similar to what I saw on the older R5, but there are some important changes here. So because the R5 Mark II is using a stack sensor, we are taking a dynamic range hit. We've confirmed this with our own testing, lots of other sources on the net, you know, photons to photos of Bill Clapp and so on and so forth. It's all coming together to show that there is a loss of dynamic range when using this new stack sensor in mechanical shutter mode compared to the older R5. It's pretty minor. It's not a huge amount, but it is still there. When it goes to electronic shutter though, it's a different story. Now first off, we're getting the exact same bit depth whether we're shooting mechanical or electronic shutter, and that might be a big part of why we're seeing the results we're seeing. The R5 Mark II does have better dynamic range than the older R5 in electronic shutter mode. That was a pretty low bar, honestly. The R5 suffered quite a bit of loss in dynamic range shooting electronic shutter mode. So it's nice to see that we have it here, but I would still say that when I'm shooting landscapes like I'm doing here, you know, contrasty light, it's worth going to the mechanical shutter. When going to electronic shutter mode, at least we're not losing too much dynamic range. We're actually gaining over the R5, and so that is a nice result when you're shooting sports and action. I think it's also important to note that the dynamic range differences we're seeing really only apply up to the second ISO gain step. Beyond that point, it's basically a wash. They're all the same. You're getting similar results regardless of whether you're shooting mechanical, electronic, either platform. Now another really positive finding, these electronic shutter reads out faster than we initially thought when we first played with the pre-production model. It's around 1/160th of a second. That's actually quite quick. That really minimizes rolling shutter issues. You know, if you're shooting electronic shutter mode and panning, you're really not going to get strong diagonals, so that's a really nice result as well. So considering that we have this quite fast readout speed, we're still getting that good 45 megapixels resolution, this really does make the R5 Mark II a great sensor for all-around photography. I mean, yes, I will get some improvement for dynamic range if I'm shooting landscapes with the older R5, but that's only a mechanical shutter. In most situations, I think you're still going to find the R5 Mark II's imaging to be very good, very useful for many different kinds of situations.
So you were asking about shooting aspen pictures. So this is pretty cool. I call these aspen eyes. So what'll happen is in a rainstorm, water will kind of come down here, and sometimes in this tree it might go underneath the bark. It'll dribble out here. It'll look like a tear coming down. So cool. So I have this good old R5 and I love this thing to pieces.
Yeah.
But there are times when I'll reach for the R8 instead of the R5 because the focus is just a little bit more quick, a little bit more accurate. It locks on a little bit better. Being a newer camera, it's going to be every bit as good as the R8 and definitely better than this.
Yeah, I definitely get that, Mike, because they've changed the interface pretty much completely. You know, they've simplified it in some ways. They've changed how the camera operates. And of course, we also tried to get the eye control to work for you. It doesn't want to do it. You know, when we first played with this pre-production camera, we got an opportunity to shoot a lot of sports and action. And that's where I like the eye control. And shooting some of the wildlife today, I liked it as well, where I can just look at a subject, it goes right to there. It seems to be quite intelligent, and it does work for me. But on this trip, we don't want to shoot sports and action. We already did that. We tried the action modes. You know, these are specific cases for volleyball, basketball, you know, like specific sports situations. That all worked fine. But this is a good test for general photography.
Okay, well, this is not the best place to shoot hockey and football and stuff, but you did use my 800 f11 on the R5 Mark II. How did that work out?
Yeah, good. I mean, you know, this focusing system is working with the slower lenses. I was trying the animal subject detection, and Canon's animal detection historically has been very good, you know, and I don't know if you've tried it on yours, if you use subject detection.
Yeah, I use it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite accurate here. I did find there were still situations where it wanted to move to a different subject or like focus on the log behind. I don't think that was the lens. I think the lens did just fine. But then on the bighorn sheep we had, it was right to the eyeball, no problem. I definitely find turning the detection modes off helps when I'm shooting landscape, you know, where I don't want to maybe do other things or find other things. So I did find I was doing that on a regular basis. But I will say the eye control, I liked it for wildlife. I don't like it for still life shooting. I went back to just like turn it off, just a single point, start there and let it track from there, and then it does a good job. But overall, autofocus seems to be very accurate, very reliable, and predictable, which is important to me.
Yeah, predictable is the main thing.
Yeah. Okay, so Mike, the Canon EOS R1 we played with, it had a couple features that also the R5 has. And I know you're a high-powered sports and action journalist. Yeah. You shot a lot of hockey, a lot of rodeo. I know you did. So in your expert opinion, would you appreciate having a feature where you could go from a 45 megapixel JPEG and then shoot that up to 179 megapixels? You're not getting more detail, just more megapixels.
No.
Okay. Okay, what about a feature like this where you could do in-camera noise reduction on a RAW file? It'll spit out a JPEG and actually very effective noise reduction. Is that something you would use?
Probably not.
Okay.
I'd rather see what I have first.
Okay.
And then decide whether it needs it, how much I can apply, whether I've got to crop it and then reduce the noise. It's just better after, not in the camera.
Right. Would you find use for that like on an EOS R1 where you're shooting a sporting event, you need to get photos out right away?
In the unlikely event that sometime between now and the next glacial period, I actually get one of those.
Right.
I probably still wouldn't use it.
Okay, so Jordan wants to do his video talk, but you know, got to mount a mic on this thing because we shoot on the camera that we're reviewing, which means I got to get this hot shoe cover off.
Should we just let it dangle?
That's professional.
All right, Jordan here to talk about the video capabilities of the Canon R5 Mark II. And the really important thing here is if you're looking at the specs, it looks almost identical to the previous version. We've got the same 8K recording, we have 8K RAW capability in this, up to 60 frames per second internal, which is really impressive. Now for starters, the stacked sensor on this obviously means we're getting less rolling shutter than what we saw previously, but interestingly, it reads out a little bit slower in video mode than photo mode. This is also a phenomenon we saw in the R3, but it's around a 60th, 70th of a second, so it's still not going to give you a lot of bad diagonals, and it's a big improvement over what we saw before. But really interestingly, I think the stacked sensor is what's giving us the capability to use Canon's C-Log 2 profile, which is their widest dynamic range profile. Previously, it's been reserved for for cinema cameras, and I love using it. I find Canon C-Log 3, often I would get oversaturated colors, skies blocking up, where here we've got expansive dynamic range and it's very easy to grade. However, I do find it really interesting that though the sensor is fast enough, this isn't capable of shooting oversampled 4K 60p, and its closest competitor, the Nikon Z8, is capable of that. So you will see a resolution drop and a little more noise when you jump from 4K 30 up to 4K 60. There's some really nice quality of life improvements as well. In the event that you're able to get the hot shoe cover off, that covers the powered hot shoe, which lets you use things like powered microphones and Canon's own XLR adapter. As well, we've got an autofocus mode that is not only going to prioritize subjects that it detects, but only focus on them. So if I walk out of frame, then it's not going to pull focus to the background. As well, while Chris is recording me, I get to look at a beautiful little tally lamp. So I know the record button was actually pushed. And the biggest one, I saved the best for last, Canon has implemented a waveform. Oddly enough, it's not in the R1, but I love seeing it here. It's my favorite way to meter out a scene. Oddly enough, you can't change the placement or the size of it. Hopefully we see that coming up in firmware, but I'm not going to complain. I'm just thrilled to have a waveform on a Canon camera. But obviously, the R5 was notorious for being one of the worst overheating cameras ever when it first launched, so I really want to test the R5 Mark II and see if that's a problem at all. So I'm going to go head to my office and run some tests.
Are you guys done yet?
All right, let's talk about overheating. And the great news here is I don't think I'm going to have to dedicate multiple videos to talking about overheating like I did with the original R5, because performance is significantly improved here. So starting with the most demanding mode, recording 8K 60 frame per second RAW, I was able to record 23 minutes of video, which is definitely quite usable for quick slow-mo shots. That said, this is still quite a bit less than the 40 minutes that I was able to get with the Nikon Z8. And it's a similar story if I want to record 4K 120. Here I'm getting 24 minutes, which is plenty for recording the occasional slow motion clip. But then I wanted to try a mode that I might actually use to record long takes, like doing 8K recording compressed at 24 frames per second. And there I was able to get 51 minutes, so it might not be great for like an entire live concert or presentation, but for most uses it's absolutely adequate. Then the next thing I did is look at the oversampled 4K 24p, which could be a real problem on the previous camera. There I was able to record for an hour and 14 minutes. The battery light was flashing when the camera shut down. So those are the most restrictive modes. That said, if you don't use the fine quality settings on any of the 4K modes, you would burn through the battery before the camera overheated. Now remember, all these tests are done at room temperature with an hour cool down in between all of them. If you're going to be doing something much more demanding or in warmer climates, it is really nice you can use the optional Canon fan battery grip. Now that's not going to completely eliminate overheating, but it does give you longer record times, and I've been told that it's going to help the camera cool down faster in between recordings. So at the end of all that, what do I think of the R5 Mark II as a video camera? Well, I would still have a very difficult time choosing between it and a Nikon Z8 is kind of my favorite hybrid camera. But if you are a Canon shooter, then this is by far, like I said at the start of this, the best option for video shooters, and I think it definitely justifies an upgrade.
Well, Mike, it's getting late in the day, and I have to say, I absolutely loved using the R5 Mark II, getting more time with it, in an actual setting with a production camera. Everything that I love about the R5, the handling, the weight, the size, just the general feel of it, I love here too. I think it's all been retained really nicely, but the autofocus is faster for sure. I do like the faster burst rates. And so I think, if you're looking for a camera that can shoot wildlife, sports, and video, because this has fantastic video capabilities that maybe on paper don't look as great, but really in application are a huge benefit, I think the R5 Mark II is still the way to go.
The R5 Mark II seems like an absolutely miraculous camera. The thing about the old R5 is you still got the mechanical shutter.
Yeah.
So you can use that at 12 frames a second?
Sure.
So it's pretty fast. And if you're shooting things like landscapes and portraits and stuff like that, you're not going to gain that much, I don't think, from the R5 Mark II.
No, I think that's a good point. I mean, I would absolutely agree. The big fun thing for me every time we go with you, Mike, is that you're taking us on the road like you do in your column where we explore Southern Alberta. We just have an adventure. Who knows what we're going to get. So super fun, and actually have a great book. You should check that out. You can get it at the camera store. Definitely look at that because it's a fantastic read and beautiful images.
Thank you, Chris. You're very kind.
No, it's true. Thanks so much for joining us, guys, and do leave your comments below. Let us know what you think. If you have any questions, hope you enjoyed this second look at the R5 Mark II. Also, listen to the podcast. It's going to be on on this exact same channel or your favorite podcasting apps. Just look for PetaPixel Podcast. You enjoy it. And you know, Mike, we have a merch store. Okay,
Yeah.
it's store.petapixel.com. We sell some shirts because if you need some for the elbows, I don't know, like.
Chris, look, if your elbows don't look like this, you're not trying hard enough.
Okay, we'll still get you one of our shirts. Maybe you can put holes in that one. Okay,
I will. I look forward to it.
Thanks so much for joining us as always. We'll see you soon with more on PetaPixel.
So this crack happened, I was minus 35 and the moisture from my eye condensed on here and then froze as soon as I took the camera away. So I just gently put my finger in there to scrape the frost off and it cracked the glass. That was 3 weeks after I got the camera. I haven't gotten around to getting it fixed. So this is my Sigma 150 to 600 mil. And if you're wondering why there's tape on it, it's because the screws are loose inside the lens barrel. And rather than send it off to get it fixed, I decided just to get a roll of Gorilla Tape and tape it down. So I don't have manual focus anymore, but I never use that anyway. And this lens has been faithful from day one. I love this thing.
You want the new version, right? In RF mount?
If I could get the new version of this 150 to 600 Sigma in RF mount, I would be a very happy boy.
Do you think the screws stay in the new version?
You know, it's going to take about a decade of testing to be absolutely sure, but I think they're probably better than this construction here.